The boy who vanishes on the forest trail. The way back home. On the border between Montana and Colorado, where the mountains slice through the sky like blades and the forests seem to swallow the light, there is a trail that locals call the Deer Creek Trail. For most, it is just an old logging road that children use to walk home from school when the weather permits. For others, however, it is a place where compasses fail, animals freeze, and where, for decades, people claim to hear voices that do not belong to the living. It was on this trail that on October 17, 2002, an 8-year-old boy named Evan McBride disappeared without a trace in broad daylight, less than 500 meters from his home. The inexplicable thing is that Evan was not alone. He was accompanied by his dog, Timber, a trained border collie who returned home 24 hours later, carrying the boy's folded clothes in his teeth, perfectly clean, as if someone had carefully placed them there to be found. This is one of the most baffling cases in the region, and to this day, the authorities remain without an explanation. Life before the storm. Evan McBride was born in 1994 in a small town surrounded by mountains called Pine River, Montana, a place where life was simple: family farms, an old 2-building elementary school, small churches, and a climate that alternated between brutal snowstorms and cool summers. He was the only child of Mark and Allison McBride, a young couple who had moved from Denver in search of peace and quiet after the death of Mark U.S. older brother years earlier. Pine River was exactly that, a place where absolutely nothing happened, except for the local farm shows and rodeos, until 2002. Evan was a quiet, creative child with a curiosity that teachers described as inexhaustible. He loved drawing maps, exploring rocks, and telling made-up stories that, according to him, were dictated to him by the trees. His teacher, Mrs. Lawton, later recalled, "Evan had something special. He wasn't one of those noisy children. He observed. He listened. He seemed to understand things that other children didn't." Another important detail, he had an extraordinary bond with his dog, Timber, a black border collie with white markings on his chest. Timber had been trained for basic mountain rescue, and Evan said he could talk to him just by looking at him. Timber followed him everywhere, even to school in the mornings, although he waited outside, sitting like a statue, until Evan came out at the end of the day. Year 2002. The year Evan disappeared was marked by a turbulent atmosphere in the United States. The country was barely recovering from the emotional impact of 9/11. Political tensions were rising. National security was a daily topic of conversation, and collective fear meant that every child's disappearance was treated with particular sensitivity. But in Pine River, life went on almost as usual. There hadn't been any serious crimes for years. The local police were used to fighting drunks in bars, not investigating deep mysteries. That contrast would be crucial in the subsequent investigation. The last day, October 17, 2002, 3:12 p.m., Pine River Elementary School was a mile from the McBride home. The way back was safe, open, and traffic-free, crossing a section of the woods known as Deer Creek Trail, a wide path used by all the children. The weather was perfect, sunny, 16 degrees, no wind, nothing to suggest danger. At 3:12 p.m., the school's old security cameras recorded Evan leaving through the front door, accompanied by Timber, who was waiting for him, sitting as usual. According to witnesses, Evan seemed normal, calm, with no signs of distress or trouble. 3 classmates said he started walking with them but ran ahead a bit because he was a fast walker, about 200 meters ahead of them. On the rustic bridge that crosses Deer Creek, with Timber running around. At 3:26 p.m., just 4 minutes from home, Evan disappeared. The first alert, 3:40 p.m. Evan's mother, Allison, looked out the window as she did every afternoon since Evan always ran inside, leaving his backpack in the doorway. But that day, he didn't arrive. At 3:45, she went to the door. Nothing. At 3:50, she called the school, thinking he might have stayed behind for an activity, but they confirmed he had left on time. At exactly 4 p.m., Alison called the police. In any big city, this would be a swift response. But in Pine River, where the last disappearance had been in 1978, some officers initially thought the boy was playing hide-and-seek. However, his father, Mark, insisted that Evan wasn't that kind of kid. At 4:25 p.m., a patrol car went out to search Deer Creek Trail. At 4:32, they found Evan's backpack in the middle of the trail. It was perfectly positioned, not discarded. There were no signs of a struggle, no scratches, no footprints, no drag marks. It looked as if it had simply been left there. The search by 6 p.m., more than 40 volunteers, firefighters, police officers, and neighbors were on the trail calling the boy's name. Timber was nowhere to be seen. This puzzled everyone, as the dog never left Evan's side. A local hunter said something that chilled everyone present. "I don't hear any birds. Something strange is going on here." And it was true. Total silence. No leaves rustled, no squirrels, no wind. The forest was dead. At 7:15 p.m., night began to fall. Flashlights shone into the woods. The search dogs arrived hours later. But something was wrong. The dogs didn't want to go onto the trail. They whined, they backed away. One even lay down and refused to move. The canine supervisor would later say, "In 20 years of work, I've never seen dogs react like that. It was as if they smelled something we couldn't perceive." Witnesses and contradictions. In any child disappearance, the first thing to do is talk to the last witnesses. Evan's 3 classmates all said the same thing. Evan was in front. He was walking normally. Timber was running happily. Nothing unusual. No one was behind them. No one was passing them. But one of them, Jacob, said something that investigators initially dismissed. Just before he disappeared, Timber stopped, staring up at the trees. His ears perked up as if he heard a voice. When Jacob said this, the boy's mother cried even harder. She knew that Timber never reacted like that without reason. The unexpected twist. October 18th, 2002, 4:12 p.m. Exactly 24 hours after the disappearance, Alison heard knocking on the kitchen door. It was Timber. The dog was dirty, trembling, his paws wet, but he had no injuries. He looked exhausted, as if he had run for miles. He was carrying something in his teeth, Evan's clothes. And here's the most disturbing detail. The clothes were perfectly folded. No mud, no strange smell. As if they had just been laundered. It was impossible. Evan had left wearing those clothes, and those clothes had been on his body. Yet it seemed as if someone had removed them, cleaned them, folded them, and given them to Timber. What happened next was the most disconcerting. Timber lay down in front of the house and began whimpering, staring toward the woods, as if something invisible were moving among the trees. From that day on, he never went near Deer Creek Trail again. The police investigation. The FBI arrived within 48 hours due to the child's age and the unusual nature of the scene. They conducted heat mapping, soil scans, and interviewed all the neighbors. Preliminary conclusion. No traditional abduction, no adult footprints, no child's footprints beyond the bridge, no dog tracks, no tire tracks, no evidence of a large animal, no traces of blood, no signs of dragging or struggle. Folded clothing suggested human intervention, but didn't fit any existing theory. The case began to be classified as disappearance with no observable vector, a term used internally when something doesn't fit any known criminal pattern. The town rumors. Here begins the part that the authorities tried to keep hidden. Pine River had old stories about the Deer Creek Trail. People who heard their names called from the trees. Old miners who vanished without a trace. families who claimed to see white figures in the woods, animals that acted as if there were an invisible predator, hikers who lost minutes or hours without remembering it. An elderly woman from the town, known as Mrs. Holloway, stated, "That wood isn't for children. There's something ancient there, something that doesn't want to be seen." And she added, "Evan didn't leave. He was called." Investigators didn't take these accounts seriously until they found Evan's scouting journal in his bedroom. On the last page, written the day he disappeared, was a drawing of the trail. And next to it, in childish handwriting, a sentence. "Today I heard my name in the woods, but Mom says it was the wind. It didn't sound like the wind." The lost 10 seconds. The agents reconstructed Evan's steps. He walked across the bridge. Timber went ahead. His companions were behind. At one point on the trail, the view is briefly lost through a bend in the trees. That section lasts 10 seconds of walking. Evan disappeared in those 10 seconds. Everything indicated that he didn't run. He didn't fall. He didn't scream. He left no trace. He left no signal. It was as if he vanished, literally. The unexplained signal. 3 days later, a park ranger reported that his radio picked up interference near the trail. It was a child's voice. The recording, although deteriorated, said, "Mom, Timber, I'm here, and then silence." The ranger thought it was a cruel joke, but FBI audio experts determined that the voice had an 87% match with Evan's voice. The problem, there were no radios in the area. Timber wasn't wearing a tracking collar. The signal didn't come from any known equipment. There was no way to transmit from that point in the woods. Evan's case shook Colorado and Montana for years. Open disappearance, no cause determined. But the question everyone in Pine River is asking isn't just what happened, but why the dog returned with his clothes folded, clean, untouched, as if someone or something had specially prepared them to be found. And the most disturbing thing, why did Timber, from that day on, never go near the woods again? But every night, from 3:26 to 3:30 a.m., he wakes up, walks to the door, and stares intently toward Deer Creek Trail as if he could still see Evan walking there.